What a race that was. I don't even know where to start. That has to be not only one of the best races in F1 I've seen in almost 20 years. Okay, is it the very best ever? No, but that really does cap off one of the maddest weeks in Formula 1 I've ever seen. And, of course, I'm going to do my usual race order, but my goodness me, it just feels weird to say congratulations, Carlos Sainz, on your maiden Grand Prix win, but yet, even though Ferrari won the race, they also lost the race. Let's go. 9.5 out of 10 for Carlos Sainz. Qualified on pole position for the very first time, and I had a feeling that he was going to win the race. I didn't know how he was going to win the race, but something just told me, yeah, Sainz is going to convert pole to victory. But not quite in the way I thought it would happen. I've got to say, that mid part of the race, he was definitely a lot slower than Leclerc, and I've got to say, it does make me wonder, like, Charles Leclerc doesn't have an ironclad number one status, despite the fact that he has been clearly faster in qualifying all season long. I mean, 1 pole position for Carlos Sainz, 6 pole positions for Charles Leclerc in, not 10 races? And yet, Sainz is being allowed to try and win the race. I mean, but also, mate, I really don't think you are the man for the job to be team principal at the Scuderia. I just don't. And to be honest, whilst admittedly, yeah, Leclerc did mess up the strategy a bit. I'm going to get on to Benotto later on when I get to Leclerc. Perez, second place, 10 out of 10. Leclerc launched into him at the restart, dropped down the field for repairs to fix his car, and I've got to say, if it wasn't for what happened at the start, Perez could have actually won the race today. Extremely unlucky. But having said that, though, he did a fantastic job, getting a big points haul for Red Bull, and of course, because he finished second ahead of Leclerc, he helped Max reduce the points deficit between himself and Leclerc, although of course Perez himself is technically also in the championship fight, which is a bit awkward. So it's now only 34 points the gap between Max and Perez, and 43 points the gap between Verstappen and Leclerc, even though, I mean, if Perez can really, really be a bit more consistent, he can get back into this championship fight, and who knows? Leclerc, there might be some shenanigans going on. If some shenanigans start going on at Red Bull later on this season, you never know. Leclerc might just have a peak again. But as it stands, it doesn't look very good, does it? Third place, Lewis Hamilton, 10 out of 10. His best performance of the season. Got the fastest lap. He was lapping faster than the Ferraris mid-race. I do have to say, at the restart, he wasn't that impressive. I do have to say, Perez had the faster car, and if we're going to be truly honest, Leclerc was absolutely brilliant at fighting back. And I have to say, some of the deficiencies of the Mercedes did finally show up in the last 10 laps. F1, Liberty Media, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this video, please release footage of those last 10 laps from Fernando Alonso's car, please, because they were absolutely mental. Fourth place, this might seem a bit harsh, but it's 9 out of 10 for Charles Leclerc. I think it actually was his decision to stay out for those last 10 laps on hard tyres, and if it was his decision, even though, yes, I know he only had about 6 seconds to work it out, he shot himself in the foot, if that's true. But having said that, the way Benotto talked to him towards the end, it does seem as if Leclerc got all very salty, got very angry and bitter, not acknowledging Sainz for his first ever win. It does seem as if, Leclerc really thought he was going to win the race. And I don't blame him, because let's be truly honest, Leclerc's the one fighting for the championship. I mean, yeah, it's all great and that Sainz gets his maiden win in F1, but you can't have room for sentimentality in Formula 1. You're fighting for a world championship. It's like Binotto's trying to balance like two heavy bags in both hands. And you know, it's like, obviously one bag is gold and the other bag is red. The gold bag is the more valuable bag, but yet at the same time, though, he rather likes the red bag a lot. And because he can't make up his decision which bag to prioritise, he ends up dropping both bags. Yeah, the red bag wins somehow, but the golden bag gets dropped to the ground and it just pours out everywhere, full of all the sand and powder or whatever is inside the bag. It's just, I'm gonna have to give Binotto a rating at this point. I'm gonna have to give Binotto. I mean, Binotto's man management deserves a 0 out of 10. Just come on, man. Seriously, what are you doing? I mean, to be honest, I have to say the team probably should have intervened for that safety car just before everyone did their last pit stops. They should have said to Leclerc, come in and get soft tyres now. Bang, immediately. If he did that, that would have been 25 points in the bag for Leclerc, and he would have nibbled right into Verstappen's point gap. Fernando Alonso, 9 out of 10, drove very well, and like I said, I want to see some onboard footage from Fernando Alonso's car. And for those of you wondering, yeah, that Andrea Rodriguez thing was a joke between me and a certain follower of this channel. 6th place, Lando Norris, 9 out of 10. I don't really remember what he did. I mean, he qualified in the top 5, I think. Was it? Yeah, he qualified 6th. And once again, he was just simply so much quicker than the driver of car number 3, because I'm going to go on to Ricciardo later on. 7th place, Max Verstappen, 8 out of 10. Extremely unlucky to pick up that puncher, and also extremely unlucky to pick up bodywork damage, meaning he had to do a damage limitation race. Did fairly well to hold off Schumacher for 7th place, meaning that with, of course, the clown world antics going at Ferrari, it wasn't that bad a race in the end for Verstappen. I think Max can be kind of relieved at the end result. It wasn't so bad, even though he thought, oh no, we're about to really throw away some big points today. But when you're fighting against Ferrari, you don't need to panic that much. They're gonna mess up in their own very unique way. 8th place, Mick Schumacher, 8.5 out of 10. Congratulations to a new point scorer, just like Carlos Sainz getting his first win. Schumacher scores his first ever points in Formula 1. It's been 52 years in the making. It's been far too long, to be honest. Should have happened at Canada, if we're going to be honest, but I've got to say, despite a tricky start to the season, Schumacher really is now getting on top of the car, and unfortunately for me, as a Kevin Magnussen fan, he's getting the better of Kevin, to be honest. 9th place, Sebastian Vettel, 8 out of 10. Yet another solid drive again in a car that is just awful. To be honest, I look at that Aston Martin and I think, is that a repainted 2021 Alfa Romeo, repainted in dark green, because it's not very quick. But it's Sebastian Vettel's hand. He has found a way of consistently scoring points in it, and I have to give kudos. Yes, he was helped by the attrition rate today, but Sebastian Vettel is driving very well since he left Ferrari. I've got to give credit where credit is due. 10th place, Kevin Magnussen, back in the points again for the first time since Imola, 7 out of 10. Unfortunately, he got very much beaten by Schumacher this weekend, but it's points on the board for Haas, who, of course, maintain 8th place ahead of Aston Martin. It's getting very close between the pair of them. It's now only Haas are on 20 points, Aston Martin on 18 points, AlphaTauri only have 27. Next up, it is, actually, I'm going to do a special interval. Yes, the celebrities get a 10 out of 10. Keanu Reeves, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Tom Cruise, Stormzy, and whoever else turned up. Very respectful, very knowledgeable about the sport. Way more better behaved and more well-mannered than the celebrities we saw at Miami. It's good to have a bunch of celebrities who actually turn up on the grid and actually pay respect to the sport, because, you know, there are just a few too many celebs who just turn up on a grid hoping to be noticed. It gets on my nerves, but now I'm about to give some very, 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 very mean ratings now for the next 4 people involved. Stop oil protesters, but minus 10 million. Invaded a track right after Zhou Guanyu's crash. Honest to goodness, I hate to say this, but I think Zhou's crash might have actually saved us from seeing some people getting splattered on a track today in front of 100,000 spectators. I'm just glad. It's just, honestly, they have been disturbing football games, like, you know, a game between Everton and Tottenham, going to oil rigs, tying themselves up to around, you know, all those oil rigs. You know, making protests around motorways. You know, look, I'm not a totalitarian. I don't have a problem if you want to protest. You know, we live in a free society here in the West. You know, you can go on about environmentalism, global warming and all that stuff, but, you know, when you protest like this, you just lose supporters. Like, I'm beginning to sit there and think, you know, there's Green Party supporters who just look at you and think, yeah, you're making us look absolutely terrible. Next up, Nelson Piquet Sr., minus 10 million. This man is just hideous, to be honest. The comments he's made about Ayrton Senna, the comments he's made about Nigel Mansell, the comments he's made about Enzo Ferrari, the comments he's made about the Rosberg family, and last but not least, of course, the comments he made about Lewis Hamilton. It all deserves minus 10 million. I don't need to explain myself. If you've been watching the F1 news, you know what I'm talking about. Bernie Ecclestone, minus 10 million. Mate, if you want to take a bullet for Putin, just go and join the Russian army in Ukraine. Just be done with it, because none of us are going to miss you if you do meet your end in that part of the world. And Matteo Binotto, 0 out of 10. I just don't know how on earth he's got a job. And as for Nike Rueda, that man is a poster child for job security, because I do not know how on earth he keeps his job year after year. And now, of course, for the drivers who didn't score points, Lance Stroll, 6 out of 10. I don't remember what happened, because so many things happened in this race that Lance Stroll was very much a footnote in this race. Nicholas Latifi, though, my goodness me, the way he drove today, I've got to say, he actually deserved to score a point. He was just so quick in the first half of the race. You know, getting into Q3 for the first time yesterday, out qualifying a lot of faster cars. I mean, I was actually sitting there thinking, was that a Duracell battery driving in Latifi's seat yesterday? I mean, it can't be Latifi. When on earth is he this quick? And in the first half of the race, it looked like that Duracell battery was indeed driving the Williams number 6 car. But I've got to say, 8 out of 10 though for Latifi. What a stunning drive. Kind of a shame he didn't score points. I think, obviously, toward, you know, the tyres and the car was wearing out towards the end. But, you know, if Latifi wants any hope of staying in F1, I think more performances like this might actually go some way to say, you know what, he's not that bad after all. 13th place though, Daniel Ricciardo. If there's one thing worse than his performance in the race, it's actually where he now stands in the driver's standings. He is now down in 14th place. Just like Sebastian Vettel, he has 15 points, but because of Sebastian Vettel's getting 6th place at Baku, meaning that on countback, Vettel gets to go ahead into 13th place. This is surely it now for Daniel Ricciardo. I don't see how he stays at McLaren after this year, and to be honest, I don't really think any team should go and chase his signature, because, you know, it's his 2nd year at the team. He really should have got his head around how to drive this McLaren by now, but he doesn't. He's, you know, and the craziest thing is that he's only just turned 33, but yet he looks finished. I suppose, you know, Yeah, he had to make 4 pit stops, and he had a broken DRS. Very unlucky, but at no point during the race, though, did he ever look like he was fighting for points again. It's just now turning into a very similar tale. Like, I know he gets a lot of problems from time to time, but even on his off days, he's just miles off the pace. I don't see how the hell he stays. I mean, I'm only giving him 6 out of 10 because of the DRS crack and the 4 pit stops, but at this point, every point I'm giving to him is now just sympathy points, because I don't see what on earth, why, getting paid like $10 million or pounds a year to be in that seat, per year, by the way. He's not worth the money, and the worst thing about it is that he's actually taken a pay cut from what he was getting paid at Alpine. Which, I mean, for Dan Ricciardo, it really is just an all-round L at this point. It really is sad to see, but the guy is just so off form. I don't want to keep, stabbing the knife in, but the guy is just finished. I do not see a recovery for him now. And, of course, in 14th place, Yuki Tsunoda, 3 out of 10. He spawned going into, the first sector of the track. I can't remember, was it the Abbey Chicane, or I can't even remember what part of track was it, Priory, I can't remember, but he spawned, and the last person you should hit is your teammate, and guess who got tagged and spun around with him? Yes, it was Pierre Gasly. That's 3 out of 10 for you, Tsunoda. Second weekend in a row that you make a massive blunder. It's not good enough. I mean, obviously, we should also take into consideration, of course, Yuri Vips was dropped as a Red Bull reserve driver this week due to comments he made on Twitch. So really, in reality, Tsunoda only has one driver fighting him for that final seat at AlphaTauri next year, but I'm getting the feeling Liam Lawson might be able to get that seat without having to do an awful lot in F2 this year, because Tsunoda, mate, you're not doing much to justify your seat in Formula 1. It's just far too many silly errors cropping up. And I know you can do better. I know you can do better than this, but you're not. So it's 3 out of 10. And because of the behaviours of other people around this weekend, none of the drivers who started the race will actually be getting rejected the race. Driver of the day, I'm going to actually give it to Lewis Hamilton, because I think Sergio Perez was just a little bit too rough with some of his overtakes. Lewis Hamilton getting a podium and threatening for the race win in a car that's not been competitive for this season. And of course, the stop oil protesters, Nelson Piquet Sr., Bernie Ecclestone, and of course, Yuri Vips will get joint rejected the week, in my opinion, because their behaviour is just being ridiculously awful. And as for the drivers retired, 6 drivers retired, 8 out of 10 for Ocon. I don't know. I think he had a mechanical issue. Gasly retired because he had too much damage from his collision with Tsunoda. I think, Tsunoda. And he couldn't. And even after his car was repaired, he couldn't carry on. Bottas had to retire. A truly miserable day for Alfa Romeo. And as for the 3 drivers who went out on the first lap, I am not going to be giving out any scores to them because they were just so unlucky. I mean, Gasly went for a gap that, that was clearly there, but, so Guanyu Zhou decided to sort of go from the outside and turn in slightly on the right, whilst George Russell was on the inside and then slightly decided to turn on the left, and both of them turned in on Gasly at the same time. Yes, you could say Gasly shouldn't have been there, but how the hell could he have predicted that 2 cars would try and squeeze him out like that? It's just really unfortunate. But having said that, though, I don't want to I don't want to blame anyone because choose a culprit, because I'm just happy Zhou Guanyu got out alive today, because that was just a seriously horrific accident. I don't want to go into graphic details about what happened. That was just, and then of course the stop oil protesters decided to invade the track right after he had this accident, which is just, utterly grim and disturbing and tasteless all the same. Did I mention Alex Albon? Yeah, Alex Albon, not a great weekend, but you know, he was a victim of the first lap crash, and I have to say, though, considering he had the upgrades at Williams this weekend, very disappointing. And I have to say, if he had actually completed the race, I probably would have given him a fairly harsh score, but because he was an unlucky victim in what happened in the first lap, I kind of feel like it's not right to give him points, because there was just so many cars hitting each other, there was just so much chaos, and of course, what a race, what a week, what a qualifying, what a weekend, what an everything. We are not forgetting this race for a long time. I'm certainly not going to forget about it. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe to Crystal Racing. I've now been talking for almost 21 minutes. That's how much that happened. And see you again next time.